Batman is a character that has been around for a very long time. First introduced all the way back in 1939 in Detective Comics, writer Bill Finger and comic artist Bob Kane had no clue that they had just created one of, if not the greatest fictional character of all time. Hundreds of comic books, video games, movies, animated and live action TV shows, Batman is arguably the most popular superhero of all time. With the recent announcement of the reboot to the DCU led by the great James Gunn, I was reminded that we are in store for another new Batman, meaning another new actor, which got me thinking, being the obsessive Batman fanboy that I am, I wanted to take a look back and rank every live action Batman from worst to best. Now, please keep in mind that this ranking is based on each individual portrayal in my opinion of it. It is not necessarily based upon who was in the best film. Let's rank Batman. Kicking it off in dead last, I have Lewis Wilson. I don't know why, but for some reason there's this weird ideology that just because something is first, that automatically makes it good or the best. I hate this ideology because it can be so blinding to what things actually are, disregarding flaws simply for the sake of being the OG. This 1943 15-chapter serial is awful. I understand this was the 1940s, but I'm not showing any mercy here because of that. With the recent events of Pearl Harbor, this 1940s show was riddled with anti-Japanese sentiment. I mean, the main antagonist was an evil Japanese terrorist named Dr. Daka. All in all, this portrayal of Batman is completely unrecognizable to the character that we know and love today, and I honestly don't even know that it deserves to be on this list. Man, that was really disrespectful to Lewis Wilson. Whatever, I don't care, it was bad. Coming in at the number 11 spot, we have Robert Lowry. Again, same mindset going into this one. Being one of the first does not make it good. It's here Batman becomes slightly more recognizable to the character we see today, but still with many of the same flaws. But I mean, this one isn't racist, so I guess that kind of gives him a little edge, right? And at number 10, we got poor George Clooney. I'll be honest, it kind of hurts putting such an incredible actor this low on the list, but man, what a joke this version of the character was. Bat nipples, bat credit card, bat puns.
Hey, freeze. The heat is on.
Although the portrayal wasn't good by any means, there was still some good to take away from it. Clooney's Bruce Wayne was actually really solid, and I think with better direction, he could have been a great Batman. It already came back a few years back that Warner Brothers basically made Batman and Robin and Batman Forever with the sole purpose of selling toys and merchandise, which is fine, but at what cost? Creating a mediocre, campy, laughable film? Even though Joel Schumacher wanted to create a darker take on the character that was more closely resembled to Tim Burton's films, Warner Brothers wasn't having it. I don't know, I still watch this film from time to time just to get a good laugh. It's really a shame that George Clooney wasn't given a fair shot at the character. And at number 9, we have Ian Glenn in Titans. This is probably one of the weirdest castings in comic book movie show history. When I heard Jorah Mormont from Game of Thrones was the new Batman, it was a head scratcher. He's a great actor, but he doesn't really scream billionaire, playboy, philanthropist by day, beating up bad guys with his bare hands by night kind of guy. He seems like more the type of guy that goes to McDonald's at 5 a.m. every day to read the newspaper and get an Egg McMuffin because bacon is bad for his cholesterol. But all jokes aside, I was not entirely disappointed with his portrayal of the character. Even though we never see him in the cowl, he still gives off some big Bruce Wayne energy when he's in the room. This is kind of similar to the George Clooney situation where I feel if Ian Glenn had been given better direction, we probably could have seen a pretty solid take on Batman. But it doesn't really help him out much when it seems like the Titan script was written by a third grader that just learned how to curse. And at number 8, we have the other TV show Batman actor, David Mazouz. We're gonna call him David. David from Gotham. This series was a little less traditional, and it actually follows the early days of Gotham City before Batman and his rogues gallery even existed. And I have to say, this show starts out very, very strong. David did a phenomenal job at capturing young Bruce Wayne trying to find his place in the world. But as the series goes deeper and deeper into David's journey to becoming the Caped Crusader, I like his portrayal less and less. And much like Clooney and Ian and Glenn, this wasn't really the actor's fault. In the last couple of seasons of the show, Bruce becomes like this semi-Batman. I mean, literally, he wore the cowl with no ears. He was also still very young, so it was kind of hard to take him seriously. I don't know, this show just left a really bad taste in my mouth. Not to mention that god-awful Party City bat suit in the finale. All in all, not a bad young Bruce Wayne, but not a very good Batman. Number 7. Adam West. I know I said just because something is one of the first that doesn't make it good, but Adam West Batman in 1966 is an exception. I know, I'm a hypocrite. Unlike Robert Lowry and Lewis Wilson, I'm not sure Batman would be what he is today without Adam West. I mean, he made Batman mainstream. His Bruce Wayne was actually done really well, and even though his Batman was incredibly goofy, which is really just how the character was meant to be portrayed at the time, he was one of the first superheroes on the big screen. This is the first time we see a lot of Batman's main rogues like the Penguin, Two-Face, Joker, Catwoman. Sure, it was corny. Lots of dumb, illogical sequences.
Hand me down the shark repellent.
But come on, man. Are you really a Batman fan if you don't enjoy Adam West as a guilty pleasure from time to time? Number 6. Kevin Conroy. The live action version, not voice acting. If we're talking about who is the best Batman of all time, and you're including all Batman, not just live action, Kevin Conroy wins by a landslide. It's not even close. Batman the Animated Series, the Arkham games, the guy truly made so many of our childhoods so special, and it breaks my heart to think about how he's no longer with us. Back in 2019, the CW had a Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which was a crossover event that joined a lot of the different CW DC shows together through the multiverse. Here, Kevin Conroy finally portrayed Bruce Wayne in live action after years of exclusively just voicing the character. And I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty cool. I haven't watched the CW shows in years because they're genuinely terrible, and I wish the CW would just never make another DC show ever again, but I tuned in to this one specifically to see Conroy. But when it turns out that this version of Batman positioned him as a villain, it was rather disappointing. But nonetheless, seeing Kevin Conroy portray Batman in live action was like a childhood dream come true. To kick off our top 5, we have Val Kilmer. I have always defended Val Kilmer's portrayal of Batman because there are so many things that he does well here as both Bruce and Bats. In a lot of ways, I truly believe he did many things better than Michael Keaton did, specifically on the Bruce Wayne front. He was charming. Objectively, he was a very handsome, attractive guy. Had all the physical features required to be an accurate portrayal of Bruce Wayne. When he walked in a room in his suit and glasses, you knew, yeah, that's definitely Bruce. It was also the first time we really see a story that dives into the psyche of Bruce Wayne. In this film, he's seeing a counselor. He's learning to process the trauma of losing his parents as a child. You could really tell that Joel Schumacher wanted this film to be a lot heavier than it actually ended up being. On the Batman side of things, he was very intimidating. Calm and solemn. Reminds me a little bit of the Arkham Asylum video game Batman, besides all the corny puns that are sprinkled in there.
B12. And my favorite vitamin, I might add.
I also like the intelligence displayed here by Kilmer's Batman. For example, you know, the way he would just effortlessly solve one of the Riddler's riddles. I think Val Kilmer gets way too much hate for his portrayal when in reality it really wasn't him, it was just Warner Brothers' incompetence. But what's new? Coming in at number 4, big hot take here, we have Michael Keaton. Many regard Michael Keaton as the greatest live-action Batman of all time. And I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. Don't get me wrong, this version of Batman was my first exposure to the character. I grew up on Batman and Batman Returns. I love those films. And I'm incredibly excited to see Keaton return in The Flash this summer. But there's always been something about Michael Keaton's portrayal that just doesn't do it for me. Specifically, his Bruce Wayne is just weird to me. He has zero swagger, bro. He doesn't strike me as confident. He doesn't strike me as a billionaire playboy philanthropist. He comes off as kind of socially awkward. Physically, I think he might be one of the strangest castings of all live action Batman. He's like 5'9", 160 pounds. He says things while in the cowl that are just incredibly corny, which would be fine if he was Adam West, but this is supposed to be the first serious portrayal of Batman in live action. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't really take him very serious. I know it sounds like I'm really digging at Michael Keaton here, but in reality, I truly believe that the number 4 spot is a very, very fair ranking for him. And one thing is for sure, Batman would not be what he is today without 1989. And now we jump into our top 3. This is the part of the video where I'm going to make a lot of you very, very angry, and I'm sorry. But keep in mind, I am a Batman snob. I have hundreds of Batman comics, and I have been obsessed with the character since I was 3 years old. I'm very, very picky and very, very critical. And my rankings are solely based on who I think portrays the character in the most accurate way, who resembles the Batman I grew up reading and watching in animation the best, not who necessarily was in the best films. So with that being said, my number 3 is Christian Bale. Okay, let's get into it. Go in the comments, tell me how stupid I am. I get it. It's okay. Let it all out. The Dark Knight trilogy is arguably the greatest comic book trilogy ever created. Christian Bale is one of the best, most versatile actors that have ever walked planet Earth. So I'm gonna point out the pros of his portrayal before I jump into the cons. First off, Bale's Bruce is damn near perfect. Specifically in Batman Begins, this guy is an absolute playboy. The way he acts like a total dipwad for the sake of concealing his identity is the most Bruce Wayne thing I've ever seen in live action. Dude bought a hotel just so he could swim in the fountain with a couple of supermodels. If that's not Bruce Wayne, I don't know what is. One of the most inspiring things I've ever seen in a comic book film was the scene of him climbing out of the pit in The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, seriously, Christian Bale's Batman inspired me through some of the toughest times in my life. I know that sounds incredibly corny, but it's the truth. And his Batman, specifically in Batman Begins, was very, very solid. The way he lurks in the shadows, genuinely terrifying at times. The cape drooped over the shoulders, which is an incredibly underrated thing in live action. I loved Bale in Batman Begins, but then came The Dark Knight. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I believe that The Dark Knight is one of the greatest comic book films ever made, arguably the greatest comic book film ever made. But it wasn't the greatest comic book film ever made because of Christian Bale's portrayal of Batman. It was because of the brilliance of Christopher Nolan's direction and Heath Ledger's Joker. When the second film came around, I felt like this trilogy was becoming less about Batman and more about Gotham City corruption coupled with Bruce Wayne's odd obsession with Jake Gyllenhaal's sister. I'm just being honest. As a Batman fan, I really didn't like the direction Nolan took the character, and I didn't like how grounded the character had become. These films were starting to feel like a representation of Batman through the eyes of Christopher Nolan more than actually being Batman. Ultimately, this is really just personal preference at the end of the day, but I couldn't really get past the clunky fight choreography, the bronchitis bat voice. I mean, like, seriously, who approved that? The fact that Bruce was Batman for a whopping 6 months and he was already dying to throw in the towel for Rachel. I mean, the Bruce Wayne that I grew up on would never have that mindset. I've always liked the idea that Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is who he actually is. Christian Bale's portrayal is the opposite of that. Batman isn't something that he wants to be, and he spends 2/3 of the trilogy actively seeking ways to get out of being Batman, when in reality, Batman should be who he is. It's not really a choice. I know it sounds like I just dogged Christian Bale and I'm being really, really critical here, but at the end of the day, I love him as an actor and I love these films. Ultimately, this is a very, very good take on the character of Batman. It's just far from the definitive version of Batman. All right, we're gonna have to turn the heat up a little bit for number 2 because it's about to get spicy in here. At number 2, we got the beefy boy, Ben Affleck. Some of you are probably losing your minds right now. Remember how I said this ranking is based on who I think mostly resembles the character in comics and animation the best, and not who is necessarily in the best films? This is exactly why I said that. Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman is arguably the most accurate portrayal of the character we have ever received. Yes, even more so than the number 1 spot in a lot of ways. Affleck had it all. Let's just talk about his physical attributes first. 6'4", 230 pounds. I mean, the training montage in Batman vs. Superman was one of the coolest Batman scenes I've ever seen in live action. Seeing Batman squat 800 for reps and do weighted pull-ups with 300 pounds is actually what kickstarted my personal weight loss of over 100 pounds back in 2018. Affleck's portrayal of Batman was incredibly well done, and it's not talked about enough. Right from the beginning of Batman vs. Superman, Bruce is running through the streets of Metropolis as Bruce Wayne, not Batman, to try to save as many lives as he possibly can. Whenever he walks in the room as Bruce Wayne, he owns it. He's smooth, he's got swagger, he looks great in a suit. I would honestly believe he's one of the richest men on earth. When I see Ben Affleck, I see Bruce Wayne. That is how much he resembles the character to me. And his Batman, my God, truly a brute. Absolutely terrifying. I'm pretty sure Batfleck could 1v11 every other Batman on this list. His combat is completely unmatched. The warehouse scene in Batman vs. Superman is the single greatest combat sequence in not only any Batman film, but any comic book film ever. No, I am not exaggerating. I mean that. Affleck has one of the most comic accurate suits. His Batmobile is ripped straight out of the Arkham Knight. He is literally the closest thing we have ever gotten to the Arkham games Batman, which is objectively the definitive version of the character. It's just extremely frustrating for me to see so much hate surrounding Ben Affleck's portrayal simply because of Warner Brothers' incompetence and Joss Whedon. I hate that guy. Just because Batman vs. Superman has its flaws and Justice League exists does not take away from the fact that Ben Affleck absolutely knocked it out of the park in this role. One of the biggest arguments I see against Affleck's Batman is the fact he kills people. And yeah, he does have a pretty massive disregard for human life in Batman vs. Superman, and that knocks him down a few points for me. But it is an extremely hypocritical argument. The same ones that say Batfleck kills are the same ones that claim Michael Keaton and Christian Bale are their favorite Batman. Like, bro, are you serious? Michael Keaton's Batman is a cold-blooded killer. He literally killed like 17 of Joker's goons. Blatantly. He blew up a factory with people inside of it. He literally threw that one guy off a building to his death. He kills the Joker. Christian Bale killed people. He literally blew up the League of Shadows facility like there's no way people didn't die in that. The funniest part about that is he did it in the name of not taking a life. He kills Harvey Dent. He kills Talia al Ghul. He literally tells Ra's al Ghul, I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you either, before sending him to his death. Bro, that's literally the same thing. Face the facts, Affleck's Batman does not get a fair hand dealt. The only reason that Affleck is at the number 2 spot and not number 1 is because a lot of the infatuation with Affleck is more so to do with what could have been for his portrayal versus what it actually was. Yes, had Affleck stayed in the role, we probably would have been graced with the definitive live-action Batman, best Batman of all time. But thanks to Warner Brothers and Joss Whedon, that's never gonna happen now. I would have loved to see what Affleck was going to bring in future films, and we still get to see him one more time in The Flash. But if he did stay in the role, we never would have gotten to see the Batman that takes my number 1 spot, which brings us to Robert Pattinson, numero uno. I was very hesitant on putting Robert at number 1. Obviously, I'm a huge Affleck fan, and believe it or not, even with my big critiques of Christian Bale, I still considered him for the number 1 spot. But when I really think about it, it's undeniable. I asked myself the question, what is the closest we've ever gotten to the Batman you grew up on? Who most closely resembles Kevin Conroy in Batman the Animated Series? And the answer was clear. It's Robert Pattinson. Pattinson's portrayal of Batman was like nothing I have ever seen before. Right from the opening monologue of the Batman when he says, they think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows, I knew that we were in for a treat. This version of Batman steals every room that he's in. He didn't even have to say anything, and yet he's somehow still intimidating and terrifying. And I'm scared he's gonna break my collarbone for jaywalking. Even though his combat didn't quite live up to Affleck's brutality, I still wouldn't want to take those hands. The Batsuit was one of my favorites in live action. The way he utilized the eye black and how the suit was still semi-homemade looking really sold me on the fact that this was a year 2 Batman. His voice is perfect, very low and raspy, but not overly done like somebody else on this list. One of the most underrated aspects aspects of Pattinson's Batman is how intelligent he proves to be throughout this film. We've never seen Batman as a detective to this degree, and I never realized how much other portrayals lacked by not including it. I think what was so perfectly done about this Batman was how not only was he written to strike fear into the hearts of criminals, but he also inspires hope into the citizens of Gotham. The symbolism in the third act of Pattinson leading the people of Gotham out of the darkness and into the light was extremely powerful, and I don't know if any portrayal had quite captured that the way Pattinson did. Christian Bale is really the only one that even came close. My biggest critique with Pattinson is the fact that his Bruce Wayne is basically non-existent, but I feel like that's not really fair to hold that against him, considering he's the only live-action Batman on this list that's still in the middle of his story arc. We haven't seen it fleshed out yet, but I'm sure that in the coming films, Pattinson will come to be the billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne that we all know and love. All in all, I truly believe Robert Pattinson is the best all-around Batman we've ever seen on the big screen. Never before have we ever had such a perfect balance of physicality, durability, detective work, combat capability, voice, and stature. And there you have it, folks. I'm sure a lot of you want to reach through your screen right now and grab me by the neck and rip my head off. And that's okay. It's my opinion, and everybody's opinion is different. So let me know down in the comments below, what is your live action Batman ranking? And if you enjoyed listening to me rant about a fictional character for however long this video is going to end up being, be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button so you can find your way back and don't miss the next one. This is a brand new channel that I just kicked off, my main being my gaming channel that I will link in the description below if you're into that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm excited to dive into some more nerd stuff. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. I love you, nerds.